Hello, I'm Ryan F9 and these are my favorite touring tires. This video starts in the same place as last year's because there is only one place to start a video on touring tires, with the Michelin Pilot Road 4. It's the best wet weather motorcycle tire on the market, full stop. Michelin cut really narrow sipes that channel water into deeper reservoirs, therefore holding the water away from the contact patch so you stick to the pavement rather than hydroplaning. Speaking of which, the area that sticks to the pavement is larger for all the sipe's narrowness. Plus, this rubber compound is 100% silica charged, creating a predominantly polar surface that more easily penetrates H2O. Molecular science aside, this rubber actually wants to pass through the water and bite the pavement. We all know why that's a good thing. The Pilot Road 4 isn't the fastest touring tire, not even in rainy conditions, but it is the safest. Take the front, which looks weird because the grooves are cut perpendicular to the direction of travel. Well, this maximizes water siping when the front tire is loaded under braking, so you get the most grip when you need it the most, like during a rainy panic stop. Independently tested, the PR4 stops 17% shorter than competitors on wet surfaces. But why do I recommend this tire first? I mean, after all, most people don't ride in the rain that often. Well, the weird thing is, this wet weather tire is also one of the longest lasting. And silica happens to decrease rolling resistance, and Michelin exploited that property to the max. Now, obviously, mileage is a subjective thing, and a meat-fisted Busa rider can still burn through one of these in 8,000 kilometers, but 20,000 is more the norm. Downsides. Michelin made the front profile more angular since the PR3, which does result in a featherweight steering feel. Some people enjoy it, but my opinion is that this tire actually falls into a corner a little bit too easily. Also, dry grip isn't great. At the very limit, it's less of a problem since the tread pattern does vanish to slick, but down here in the center belt, I do break traction under hard acceleration. And finally, with all these grooves, the PR4 scallops worse than most tires. Now, Michelin did angle the leading edge of all the sipes since the PR3 to counteract that effect, but on most motorcycles it still gets a bit bumpy towards the end of its life. Now, my size in the PR4 costs $230, whereas the Bridgestone Battle Axe T30 Evo run me just $175. So what am I losing? There's still a silica-rich compound here with plenty of grooves, but you can tell right away that the siping is much less technical. There's no narrow channels, no reservoirs. So this is a worse rain tire than the Pilot Road 4, but it's also much stickier in the dry, even compared to the BT-023 that it replaces. Bridgestone's new theory is that riders are cautious in wet weather, but push faster in good conditions, which sounds reasonable. So they moved more grooves into the tire's center belt to catch water and then channel it outwards, since most riders will stay fairly upright when it's wet. Then Bridgestone removed some grooves from the edges, presuming that if you're using the tire all the way out here, it's probably dry, so you're better off with a slick rubber patch than a tread pattern. The result is an improvement for most riding situations, but adding grooves here does mean that you're going to have less straight line grip in the dry, just like taking away grooves here means that you're going to have less cornering grip in the rain. The latter is no biggie because no one really goes knee down in a monsoon, but having a carved out contact patch in the center is more problematic. Mainly in terms of squirreliness. When you grab a handful off the line, this center tread is liable to bend and slip. Bridgestone compensated for that with a harder rubber and with shallower edges on the end of each tread groove. And that's a technique ripped from their RS10 Supersport tire to increase block stiffness. As a result, the T30 Evo does feel solid on the straights. In fact, you could even call the ride a little bit harsh, or worse yet, plasticky when you dig it into a corner. I know that the grip is there, but I have to trust that fact with my head rather than with the feedback I'm getting from my hands. Last important thing to note, mileage is weird on the T30 Evo. It wears away a little bit quicker than the old BT-023, especially on the front. And some people have actually flattened off their front tires before the rear ones, which is both unusual and a little bit dangerous since flattened fronts can cause tank slappers. But as long as you always replace your front and rear tires at the same time, well, then the T30 Evo is a nice money-saving option that is a lot faster and a lot more fun than the PR4 or the BT-023 in the dry. If you're the type of person, however, that likes to make one front last through two rears, I'd forget about it. Now, there's a much better alternative to the T30 Evo for those willing to spend. It's a Metzeler Roadtech 01, also faster than the PR4 in dry weather, but this time it's faster than the PR4 in wet weather too, and mileage is way out there. Roadtech 01s will run almost as far as PR4s, which is to say, almost best in class. So essentially we have a tire that does everything well. Plus it looks like a MotoGP rain tire, and that's sexy. I'm gonna call it right now. best new tire of 2017. All categories, all manufacturers, the Road Tech 01 makes the biggest splash. And that could be a splash through potholes, frost heaves, dusty gutters, oil puddles, maple syrup, whatever Montreal can throw at the Road Tech 01. We've already seen Metzeler do a sport tire for adverse public roads with the M7RR. They've just pulled off the same trick for sport touring riders with the Road Tech 01. This tread is tailor-made for crappy conditions. The rubber compound is malleable on a micro level, so it can bend around the tiny imperfections in city streets and use them to enhance grip. The groove pattern is also suited to low grip situations. We have long sipes, reservoirs, you know the drill. Metzeler also faded the tread grooves out near the edges, so anyone with the balls to ride out near the elephant gets an elephantine amount of grip. On that note, the Road Tech 01 is a pretty easy tire to lean low. Now, Metzeler modulated the belt tension in here to be tightest at mid-lean and then softest at the very limit. And that means you have razor-sharp precision when you're lining up the next apex, and then heaps of cushy cornering grip by the time you get there. Okay, but there must be something bad about this tire. Yes, there is. It has quite a wide and flat footprint, which is why mileage and upright grip are so good, but it also means that the tire tends to wear down quite square. I should also warn you that the Road Tech 01 is not interchangeable with its predecessor. The Germans are very logical when it comes to naming things, so the 01 part means that it's a completely new platform, very dissimilar to the Z8 Interact that it replaces. All in all, these are amazing. They're not safer than PR4s in the rain, but they're definitely faster, and they're a lot quicker in the dry, and they're a lot more fun in any conditions. Plus, this is one of the first sport touring tires to actually match the Michelin for mileage. If you can afford $250 donuts, get Road Tech 01s. But what if I don't care about mileage? Maybe I want a tire that's here for a good time, not a long time. Well, the Road Tech 01 is still hard to beat for that, but it is narrowly edged by Old Faithful, the Pirelli Angel GT. This is a lightweight tire, and that's going to reduce unsprung mass, meaning that it's quicker to turn in. It also means that your suspension is going to have an easier time keeping it down in contact with the ground, ergo, more grip. Another thing is the dual compound. I mean, big whoop, right? Touring tires have been buy or try rubbers for ages. But see how the hard mileage belt is thin on the Angel GT, and they give you ultra soft cornering grip for most of the cornering surface. The result may be bitter or sweet depending how you ride. And timid motorcyclists are going to wear away the mid-shoulder too soon, since they spend a lot of time cornering here, but rarely get down here. And the result is a sort of average feeling tire that squares off quicker than a tri-compound. Angel GTs aren't that popular with timid riders. But if you ride balls to the wall, then this is brilliant. It offers maximum grip for most of the spectrum, and if you actually use most of the spectrum, you'll find that the performance and the profile wears very consistently throughout its lifetime. We've learned to expect this kind of thing from Pirelli. They happen to call it extended mileage sport, which is a cheeky way of saying they just built the sport bike tire that they wanted to make and then beefed it up a little bit for touring. The A-Spec version gets a little bit extra beef yet, since that one's meant to carry those land yacht motorcycles. If you are that sport rider who sort of goes touring, you're an R1 racer with side cases of pillion and no fear, this is the tire to choose. So, safest rain tire and the longest lasting, cheapest tire and a decent all-rounder, most expensive tire and the best all-rounder, and a sport tire dressed up as a tourer. That's all, folks. Thanks for watching.